And city council representative. Thank you. All right, we are ready to start our August meeting. Welcome for joining in person and also live stream. Throughout the live stream, if you have any questions that you want to add, please do so. We'll be a part of that. Today, we have quite a few different speakers coming. But first off, for our Jessica McCormick from our City Council is going to come and talk to us.
Hi, thank you. Just wanted to remind everybody here and at home that it is an election year. You can check your voter registration status or register to vote at indianavoters.in.gov. So you can check in there and see, make sure you're registered to vote at the correct location. We also have our early vote and absentee ballots coming up. Just so you know, we are redistricting, so the district is new, but in Speedway, the Speedway Town Council district stayed the same, and as far as the City County Council, the district stayed the same. So there's the south half is represented by one, which currently is me, and then the north side is represented by another councilor, which currently is Krista Carlino. So anyway, so it's separated. So there's a shared duty with somebody as two voices on the City County Council that Speedway have, and so we advocated for that during the redistricting because we thought that was important to work together and have the voice that we need from the west side over there. So
What's the line between them?
So the line, essentially it's Crawfordsville Road. Councilor Carlino has that business district where like Big Lots and that shopping center, she does cut off there, but it's essentially Crawfordsville Road. Well, the railroad tracks that ran behind Crawfordsville Road. And then for early voting, absentee ballots, again, you can request an absentee ballot, so you have to have that request. Application deadline is October 26th. You can find, again, all of this on indianavoters.in.gov. So that's October 26th. That needs to be received on our election day, which is November 27th. And in-person early voting will start on October 11th. So those are the dates to remember as far as election comes up. For any young friends watching, if you will be 18 by November 7th, you can register to vote. You can register and go ahead and vote. So don't forget to do that. So we look forward to seeing you all there, and I'm sure we'll know 2 or 3 locations here in Speedway once the Marion County Election Board gets that sent out. Have a good night. Thank you.
Just want to make sure that we share that information with you because we do share in neighborhood information as a neighborhood association. Our speaker for today is Bill DeBoer. He is from Woody Warehouse talking about our trees and our native gardening in Speedway. Welcome.
Thank you for the invitation. I was told I only have 30 minutes for this talk. My introductions usually take 30 minutes, so you are going to get the animated, truncated version of my talk. There's a lot to go over here. As you said, I'm Bill DeBoer. I'm Sales and Marketing Manager for Woody Warehouse Nursery, a wholesale nursery in Lisden, Indiana, if you've never heard of it. Tiny little town west of here. Just got a stoplight, so it's really feeling like a major city now. We produce annually about 200,000 to 300,000 native trees and shrubs. We sell and distribute plants as far west as Iowa, all the way to New Jersey, New York, and as far south as Kentucky, and then Michigan, Wisconsin is about the northern extent of where we're currently shipping. But we are kind of a powerhouse in the Midwest for native plants. And so why I'm here is to discuss why we should be using more native plants. And so the title of my presentation is Form and Function, picking the right native plant or shrub, tree or shrub for your landscape. And really using that word enhance, because when people think of native plants, historically, it has been, oh, well, that's that cute little thing you have in a park, or that's something that kind of grows in a thicket off on the fence row or some weedy thing I got to take care of. It hasn't been until only the past decade or so in the United States where native plants are starting to become a little bit more mainstay, a little bit more, hey, I want to get this incorporated into the landscape. So part of my talk is going to be exposing you, hopefully, to some of the wonderful attributes that our native trees and shrubs can do in your landscape. And when I say your landscape, that's not just a home landscape, that's a commercial landscape. That's really anywhere where we're putting plants. There are native plants to really enhance the beauty, the ecological benefits of any site that you want. So we're going to kind of go into that with my talk. Why natives is kind of the first bullet point I want to get into. Then ecological choices. The third thing that I hear and talk to a lot of people about is, well, are non-natives bad? I want to kind of dive into that a little bit. And then the second question for enthusiasts or people that are just curious is, well, where can I get native plants? Why are native plants not in the big box stores, in the garden centers? And then just because I want to educate is, what are the types of native plants that are out there and what are their applications? So really getting into how do we use natives in the landscape is no different than how we use any plant in the landscape. There's formal, there's informal, and there's everything in between. And so a lot of times native plants get the bad moniker of, oh, well, that's for the back 40. That's for informal gardens. And I want to show you later on how you couldn't be more wrong. We plant many formal gardens in commercial and residential areas, utilizing predominantly native plants. It's that park feel, and that's kind of a negative stereotype that we've had to overcome, is native plants are for the parks. They're not for my home. I need the pretty things for my home. Save those things for, the state park. And HOAs. So a big group that I work with kind of ties into some of those points I just talked about is we want clean, we want ornamental, we want it beautiful. How do your plants fit into that? Design considerations, right plant, right place. So the first thing I'll say is we've got wonderful native plants, some of them more accustomed to wetter sites. You put that in a hot, dry cement section of a building, you're not going to be happy with the results. Likewise, there are ones that like full dry conditions. You put that in a wet spot in your yard, it's not going to thrive. So we always have to make sure that we're picking the right plant. Wise canopy choice. I always tell people this. We tend to think short term. We think, okay, I want something pretty 5 years from now. That's the extent of what I'm thinking. Some of these native trees get to be 100 feet tall and 40 or 50 feet wide. So sometimes, while they look cute in a little container that you buy from the nursery, you have to think long term. And a lot of times that's long term post what you are going to observe. Understory and shrubs. Most people tend to think so much trees, and trees are paramount. But we fail to sometimes think of a subcategory of trees, the understory trees, or the smaller trees. When we think urban landscaping in areas where we don't have space for a 100-foot tree that has a 50-foot spread. Understory trees that are 30 feet tall, 35 feet tall, and 15, 20 feet wide, perfect for most smaller applications, whether that be commercial or residential. And then color and form. So why do we pick plants from nurseries like Monrovia or conglomerates like Proven Winners? They got really nice marketing and they have pretty flowers. And so what I'm going to be talking about in some of my presentation is we have a whole host of native trees, shrubs, understory trees, herbaceous things that are breathtakingly gorgeous. The problem is most people don't know about them. And then briefly going into top choices by category. So when I'm talking, what are those types of native plants we're talking about? Canopy trees, those are your big trees, your oaks, pecans, hickories, understory, like I said, pawpaw, serviceberries, 30 feet tall, 15, 20 feet wide. Evergreens, we'll get into that in a little bit, keep their needles year-round. Shrubs is a little bit of a misnomer. We have shrubs that only get 3 by 3, and we have shrubs that get 25 feet tall. So shrubs can almost get to an understory, or they can stay petite and nice. And then vines. We got some wonderful vines that are native, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So why natives? You know, a lot of people say a picture's worth 1,000 words, and believe me, I can talk 1,000 words, but I thought for this presentation, why not show more pictures? Because a lot of what we do has benefits that go unnoticed, whether indirectly or directly by us. And so when you are planting these plants, you are making a choice. What do you want? And the most important thing sometimes is, what are you interested in? And so one group may say, I really like songbirds. I'm really into songbirds. Great. Well, I think I used to see butterflies when I was younger. I'd love to see more butterflies. Great. Or maybe I want to help honeybees or the native bees. Wonderful. Or just wildlife in general. These planting decisions you make utilizing native plants can either favor or not favor a lot of these animals. And I think one of the most rewarding things you can do is have something that's aesthetically pleasing, looks beautiful in the landscape, but then also is functional. It attracts those bees that you like, or it attracts those butterflies, or those birds, or any other bee word I can think of. Right now it's 3, so that's what you get. And that's where we get to ecological choices. Whether we like it or not, and I tend to hate environmentalists, even though I'm one of them, doom and gloom. I can't listen to that for more than about 30 seconds, and then I flip the channel, turn off the radio, or stop talking to the person that's talking. We have destroyed, altered the landscape. The fun thing is we get to choose whether we want to rebuild, reinforce, do something different. These animals need same sort of things we need: food, shelter, and the choices you make can heavily influence that. It literally is, you plant it and they will come. And sometimes that's both good and bad. You know, we like to pick the winners and the losers with wildlife. I like this, I don't like this. And that's sometimes a hard choice when we're talking native plants, because we don't get to choose necessarily what is attracted. But you know, the milkweed plants have become the postcard for monarch butterflies, and that's great. Monarchs are hurting, but that's just one organism. There are thousands of species of butterflies, all in some degree of decline or not being robust. And so while we tend to, when we think about native plants and saving animals, it focuses on the monarch. There are a lot of other bigger fish. It's not that we don't want to be concerned with the monarch, but there's a lot more that we can be doing with the plants that we're choosing. And that's why I say plant it and we come. What I have here that you can see in the picture is a giant swallowtail, the thing that looks like bird droppings, because that's exactly what it's trying to look like, bird droppings. I guess when you look like bird droppings, you don't tend to look very appetizing. And so that's a little cryptic thing they've done to try to reduce predatory behavior on them. That is prickly ash. That's not something that most of you are probably going to put into your landscape, but literally that plant, hop tree, all part of the Rutaceae family that attracts that butterfly. I planted a hop tree years ago, and within 1 week, I had caterpillars crawling all over the hop tree. And so I encourage you, as we talk and start showing you some of the things, that's the rewarding thing, is that even if butterflies aren't your thing, you get to watch and observe something that wouldn't be residing in your house, around your building, around your park, without planting that item. And that gets into the dynamic ecosystem. When we use non-natives, when we use even non-natives and the same thing over and over and over and over, we start attracting things that we don't like. We don't know it, but all of a sudden they start taking over. You have a lot more pest issues. That's not to say you plant native plants and all that goes away. I went from a brown thumb to a green thumb just because of native plants. You will still have pest issues. But you're making a choice for a more dynamic ecosystem. And by doing that, you attract more predators. And so while you may have this pest, and the only way to alleviate that pest is chemicals and other treatments, all of a sudden, you have less to do because you're attracting the predators that take care of that pest before it ever becomes a problem. So you don't notice it, and it's not because they're not there. There's a balance. Things are kept in check. There is lots of studies showing the more non-natives that we use in the landscape, the more pest issues there are. And so think about that. There's a lot of big chemical companies that have made a lot of money off of you, just on the simple fact of what we're planting causes outbreaks of X. Now we're going to give you chemicals to control X. And it doesn't ever eliminate X, you just control it. Repeat sales. Are non-natives really that bad? So here's my beef with the native movement in general. A lot of them are very passionate people like me. They're purists. I can't have any non-native. It must be all natives and that's it. There's no discussion. And we draw hard lines, not like what we do in society nowadays. I'm here to tell you that there are plenty of non-native plants that are fine to use in the landscape. But the problem is we've become so reliant based on marketing and other things that let's plant 99% non-native and maybe we'll sprinkle in this milkweed plant or this oak tree and that's it. And so, let me go back real quick. You may see a lot of these in your house, in a park. We've got autumn olive, we've got multiflora rose, we've got Amur honeysuckle, we've got privet, Japanese honeysuckle, oriental bittersweet, white mulberry. All of these have very little control and have infiltrated and decimated our native areas where nothing else competes with them, nothing controls them. So they just proliferate, grow, 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 and what's left is you have no herbaceous understory, you have no shrubs, you have very little trees because nothing can outcompete with all these aggressive non-natives. And so even if you didn't plant this, chances are you have it. You have one of them, or you have all of them. Why are natives not more mainstream? Consumers haven't been asking for it. We grew up looking at catalogs. Well, this is the hydrangea. This is my boxwood. This is fill in the blank. This is what I buy. And guess what? Nurseries and box stores and garden centers have responded. Well, this is what people buy. This is what we're growing. The other component here is natives are not necessarily easy. Think about it. Some of these companies have been growing, propagating, cloning these things for a century. A lot of these non-natives were just now figuring certain things out about propagation and growing. Woody Warehouse, we're still figuring out how to grow some of these things. So there is not the extensive knowledge in the nursery industry with natives versus non-natives. And really, even though I'm reversing from the order, suppliers, think about it. I mean, Woody Warehouse is one of a handful of native nurseries in the Midwest. They're more and more developing, which is good. But most people, the number one thing, where can I get natives? Let me think. Let me try to find something within an hour or two or three of you. And that's the extent. Versus, you want a boxwood? I guarantee you got about 15 options within 30 minutes where you can find a boxwood. With natives, it's not necessarily the same case. So, Talked a little bit about native plants, pros, whatnot, but how do we use them in the landscape? They're different. How do we use them? It's like I started. It's the same way you use any other plant. But here's a few of Bill's keys to better utilizing them. Avoid the arboretum. I am a passionate person who probably has 300 or 400 species of native plants at my house. I like almost the Noah's Ark of 2 of each, and a lot of them. Avoid the arboretum as much as possible. You're better off saying, look, we only have space commercially or residentially for 3 trees and 12 bushes and maybe 4 or 5 dozen herbaceous. Great, let's do that. Avoid the, okay, I want 10 of one of this, because as we'll talk about, more in mass does a lot more than just having a single specimen here, 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 here. The more diversity, the better. What has happened in urban forestry? Oh, decades ago, let's plant elm trees. Dutch elm disease comes, wipes out all our elms. You know what? Let's replace elms, and we're only going to plant ash. Emerald ash borer comes, eliminates all our ash. So if you take nothing away from this presentation other than my verbosity, it is diversify what you plant. Even when you're talking an evergreen screen, everybody, what's their emerald green, arbs, columnar form? Well, what happens? You get bagworms, you get disease, you get other things, your screen gets wiped out. And so the more you diversify, the less impact that a single pest, whether that be a disease or insect, is going to have overall. But if you say, okay, I like this native thing, let's go plant white oak all down the street, then what happens when there's a disease or an insect that impacts white oak? So diversity is better. 4 seasons of interest, let's face it. We want something to look at, and it doesn't matter if it's at our own house, our favorite restaurant, our town center. We want pretty things to look at, and we want it year-round. And unfortunately, it's cold here. So we have like 2 seasons. It's hot and cold. What can we look at through 4 seasons? As I already alluded to, understand the size. You know, some of these things get big. Don't put that right next to the foundation of your business or house if it's going to get 100 feet tall, because it'll never get 100 feet tall. It's probably going to be cut down in about 10 years. Enjoy it. It's the last point in this slide. Enjoy it. If you plant it and it's just like a plastic thing that sits there, you don't enjoy it, you're not going to get use out of it. So that's why, whether it's aesthetics, whether it's ecology, whether it's, anything else, enjoy what you're planting, learn about it, and these native plants are a wonderful place for that. So, what type of native planting do you want? Formal, informal? We've got it all. Just because it's native does not mean you cannot have a formal, well-crafted, almost English-style garden with only native plants. But research before you design. This is something I struggle with at times, is don't just get a plant, stick it in the ground, because it's like, oh, I'm excited, it's got to go in the ground. Think about it. How tall does it get? What's it going to do? How's it going to be in 15 years? Think about these things before we plant, because sometimes we get impulsive. Right plant, right place. Does it like heat? Does it like shade? Does it like water? Does it like company? Does it not like company? Think about these things before we plant. And site prep. Okay, we bought all these trees. Well, guess what? We got to take down this tree. We got to take the stump out. We got to clear these things. You weren't really ready for plants quite yet. And on shrubs, what are you looking for? So you like songbirds, and you're planting this viburnum or whatever for berries because you like watching the birds eat the berries? Well, get 3 to 5 of them, because the more the merrier, and you're going to get more berry production. The same goes, you like natives because you're after edibles? Get 3 to 5. You need that cross-pollination to really start getting more pecans, more hazelnuts, more pawpaws. because one is not going to do it even if it produces nuts, berries, whatever. It'll still do it for the most part, but you get 2 or 3 in the same close proximity, you'll be happier. What I really wanted to show here is just a quick little thing I did for a customer. These are all natives. So this is in an HOA backyard. They were looking for a little bit of ornamental flair. The only reason I highlight this is just to show, well, look, doesn't that look like it should be on better homes and gardens? Doesn't it look like the same non-native things that we're buying time and time again? It was rhetorical. I mean, you can answer if you want. Where you plant it influences how the plant looks. This is our native pawpaw tree, which some people have heard of, other people, maybe in passing, and other people, I've never heard of it. Indiana banana, it's a wonderful, wonderful fruit. Has the shelf life of a fly. It's come and gone. It's ripe, it spoils. So you're never really going to see it in a supermarket. Look at the form difference in just full sun versus the understory. This is a native understory tree, so it grows in the understory of our forest. And look at how open and scraggly this thing looks. But you put it in full sun with moisture and adequate water. Look what it does. All of a sudden, it's like, wow, well, that went from being a Charlie Brown Christmas tree to something that's interesting. Something that has 1.5 feet in length leaves, kind of tropical. Attracts the zebra swallowtail butterfly. Design elements, form and color. So very often we talk about flowers. Flowers are sexy. And so when we talk plants, most people go, oh, let's talk about the flowers. And flowers are beautiful. I love flowers. I am very attracted to what these plants do from a floral sense. But we're missing, when we talk about seasonal interest, if we're not talking about some of the attributes that have nothing to do with flowers. We have the shagbark hickory, exfoliating bark, bat habitat, and just looks really unique and pretty in itself. Red osier dogwood, fire engine red stems, year round. So when we get into winter, when everything else is dormant, well, at least you got a splash of red color. River birch, a little overplanted, but once again, exfoliating, very pretty bark, interesting to look at. And there are other design implications. Pagoda or alternate leaf dogwood has a pagoda-like shape, beautiful, even when it's defoliated. You have some of our magnolias, which are just tropical and beautiful in their own right. Red buckeye attracts hummingbirds, beautiful red ornamental flower. Sweet fern, nobody has this, but about 3 feet tall, loves terrible soils, looks like a fern, very unassuming. Just quickly going through, because I know I'm already running late and behind on my schedule. This is my boss's house. Designing a little bit around his front, once again. Utilizing only natives, but saying, look, we don't have to have something that looks overgrown and messy and wild. We can utilize all these things from trees and shrubs and herbaceous natives to both look beautiful and to enhance the landscape ecologically. So getting to Bill's top categories per type. Canopy trees. These are kind of the top 5 that I would say, hey, we're talking turkey, this is where Bill goes. Hickories. You better enjoy it for the next generation because it's not for you. These guys grow about 1 foot a year, and that's if they're very happy. I have seen them also grow 6 inches a year. So the 60, 70 foot hickories you see, been around a while. Kentucky coffee tree, beautiful bark, wonderful in urban forestry because it tolerates heat and drought. Ornamental bark, ornamental leaves, a great one. White oak. one of the most majestics of our native oaks. Slower growing, yes, but just beautiful. And if you want to talk butterfly, birds, bees, everything in between, this is the mega plant to attract all sorts of things, whether you want them or not. Black cherry, anything in the cherry family. Yes, they can have disease issues just like our roses and everything, but they are a powerhouse. I mean, songbirds love just about every single cherry that our native cherries produce. There's lots of butterflies and moths that are attracted to anything that falls in that cherry rose family. And then black gum. Smaller canopy tree, hands down my favorite. Perpendicular branching, not too many things have right off the trunk perpendicular 365. Fire engine red. I love fall color, and I also love those rich colors. And it really has that red and orange color. And then I'm a big songbird person, so it has a little blue droop. It has both male and female flowers on separate trees, so you need a couple to get the fruit. But when you do, yeah, a lot of songbirds will say thank you. Top understory trees. I'm guessing that at least one or more or all of you recognize the redbud, because that's just about the only native understory plant that most people have heard of and utilize ad nauseum. But still a wonderful, beautiful spring flowering understory. But at the top of my list is serviceberry. And that is one that you do find in the box stores and in garden centers, always cultivars. But this is one that has fragrant white spring flowers. And then it has fruit that most people don't know is the poor man's blueberry. And so you can eat it, and it tastes like a blueberry. And now it's a tree, it's not a little tiny bush, so it produces a lot of it if you can beat the birds to it. And so, once again, wonderful for wildlife, and then you follow it up with amazing crimson fall color. Anywhere from red to orange to purple to yellow, it kind of does it all. Musclewood or American hornbeam is not the showiest from a flower perspective, but the name derives from the bark, which looks like a mussel, kind of like the Arnold Schwarzenegger tree. Stays small, great in urban forestry. The pagoda dogwood, once again, great songbird, those little blue droops, they love them. Architecture is beautiful in the wintertime. Showy spring flowers, wildlife benefits in the summer, winter interest. And then, of course, redbud, but once again, I'm pretty sure most of you know of it, so I will not spend a lot of time talking about that one. Evergreens, I'm really going to skip over this because in general, think about how many evergreens you guys see around. Not many, because the Midwest, in particular central Indiana, is not kind on evergreens. We're too hot with clay soil and too cold to favor the southern oaks, and we're too hot for the northern oaks, the southern pines and evergreens, and we don't favor the ones that like it colder, as in the northern climates. And so really eastern red cedar, which affectionately is known as interstate or highway, is one of the most perfect Midwest evergreen trees. Yes, it can have some disease issues, but in general tolerates terrible soils, is tough and durable, and which is something we need for our evergreens. And cedar waxwings, when you actually get the June berries, hit that one and love it. And so once again, you got something that is hardy, promotes wildlife, and doesn't require a lot of pampering to thrive. Top shrubs. I've always been a shrub person. I don't know why, I can't tell you. It's probably because everybody talks trees, and there is a myriad of wonderful native shrubs that probably most of you in this room have never heard about. And so at the top of my list is New Jersey tea. Unassuming 3-4 feet tall and wide native shrubs. And you can see in the top left, just explodes with white flowers, and you will attract everything within, I swear, 10 miles away that is interested in flowers. butterflies, bees, everything in between. You will attract a myriad of things if you have that plant, and it's small. And it tolerates drought. The only thing it doesn't like is poorly drained soils. So as long as it doesn't stay soggy wet all the time, it's a great one. Button bush. It's the opposite. Loves the water. As long as you have medium to wet site, love it. Get about 10 feet tall and wide. This is another one. It just got done blooming. But you will attract every butterfly within miles and miles and miles if you plant this plant. And it's covered with these little pom-pom white flowers. Just absolutely breathtaking when it's in flower. Shrubby St. John's wort. Some of you in the floral industry have probably seen Hypericum before. Not our shrubby native St. John's wort, but this is another one. 4th of July fireworks explodes in yellow flowers all over a shrub that only gets 4 or 5 feet tall and wide. And once again, big with the pollinators. Spice bush. It's great if you have Amur honeysuckle. It's terrorizing your understory. This is a great one. It doesn't like hot, dry, full sun, but if you've got filtered sun in a place that's medium in terms of soil moisture, works wonders. And it attracts the spice bush tiger swallowtail. And when you get female plants, it has red berries that the songbirds absolutely love in the fall time. And then lastly is witch hazel. It's a great one because, once again, it tolerates shade. I mean, it can go full sun to almost full shade. And the most unique thing is it flowers in October, when nothing else is flowering because they're smart enough to say it's getting cold and we stop. Witch hazel is putting on a show. And so, once again, if you're looking for seasonal interest, a wonderful shrub. And then top vines, and I'll wrap up, coral honeysuckle. Many of you have probably seen Major Wheeler or some other cultivar. This is a native to kind of the southern Midwest, but just explodes in red colors, and hummingbirds and butterflies love it. It's great on a trellis. Woolly pipevine, we just started growing this one. We just started to attract pipevine swallowtails. Caterpillars just because we were growing it at the nursery. And that is really one of the only plants the pipevine swallowtail larvae will eat. And so once again, you plant a single plant, you attract a butterfly that would not be there if you didn't have that plant. I added purple passion flower, technically not a native, it's herbaceous, but once again, staggering because you look at that and you go, well, that's tropical. That's not something for the Midwest. Well, it absolutely grows here. And then lastly, I added climbing prairie rose because most of us are acclimated to multiflora rose with the white flowers that terrorize every bit of land it can. But we have a climbing rose that's native and pink flowers and fragrant. And so once again, you can see bees and other pollinators love the flowers, and then it produces the rose hips that the birds will take later in the winter when other things are exhausted. So I really just want to say, you got the truncated version of my speech. Talked a lot, but hopefully you heard something that you didn't know. Hopefully I instilled in you the desire to incorporate and try more native plants in the landscape. And I appreciate the opportunity to come to talk to you. And with that, I'll say you're released from having me present anymore. So congratulations, you all survived.
Next question. I wanted to mention the Indiana Native Plant Society, its Facebook page. They have a Facebook page. It's absolutely fabulous. If you get it on, if you're interested in native plants and you get it on Facebook, it'll suck your time up. But they will answer any question, and they recommend you all the time.
That is a wonderful resource that is filled with some of the greatest plant geeks that reside in the state of Indiana. So yes, absolutely utilize that group, join that group. We are also about to launch our brand new website, which will have more information, more pictures than you ever wanted to see on all of our Midwest, East Coast, et cetera, native plants. And so that's only been about a 2-year endeavor, and I always say it's coming soon, and then another 6 months comes by, but it should be landing very soon.
I had a quick question. And with your trees, where does the tulip tree land with native?
Yeah.
Is it a good one? Because I have one across the street and one in my backyard.
It is the state tree of Indiana.
That's what I was thinking.
It is part of the magnolia family, so it holds its flowers upright, but it has a magnolia-like flower that most people just go, because they don't see it, and because it's kind of greenish yellow and held upright versus down, where you're actually seeing it better. If you're looking for a native flare, it's a quick grower. The one word of caution I'll use with any tree, doesn't matter if it's non-native or native, is it's a fast grower. It doesn't have a lot of time to mechanically enforce itself, and so branches tend to fall down with that one. And so just like our silver maple, it is a great tree, but just be aware that you can get some branches coming down, branch cracking, because it is a fast grower.
One more question too. I saw.
I'm sorry, it's only one question per person?
Well, this is I've got lots to do. How do we get more fireflies? What's a good plant for fireflies? Because I haven't seen very many in my backyard, so I'm wondering if I'm doing something wrong.
You're not necessarily doing anything wrong. The best way to get more fireflies is, and this is going to sound like a sales pitch, and I know I am a sales and marketing manager, plant more native plants.
Okay.
Because it's simple as that. You have native trees, native shrubs, native herbaceous things, and having real estate is important as well. And so if you and your neighbors collectively have more native plants, you will see more lightning bugs, fireflies come. And so you don't have to have acres and acres to make them come. It's just get more of the stuff that they're after.
And don't clean up, I'm sorry, don't clean up your yard a lot. Leave a lot of dead stuff around the edges. Because I think I just read the other day that it requires the larva 2 years and all that dead stuff in order to survive. Does that sound right?
Tactful garbage. Tactful garbage is what we're after. So you can still have organic matter things that allow these organisms to develop and grow without it looking like you just decided I'm done with this landscape. And so you can have areas that are wild or messy, and you can always find ways of use the vines, use other things to kind of cover it up, make it look pretty, while it's actually also allowing for habitat and developmental sites for insects and other things.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so very much. We also do have a representative from the Speedway Plant Club, which is a new Facebook page. So Stephanie Bennett is going to kind of talk about what they've been working on. The Plant Club has only had a Facebook page for like 2 years, and already they're doing some amazing stuff in Speedway. So Stephanie, if you want to come up, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am not used to a microphone, former teacher here, so that's awkward. But so happy to be here with you all tonight. As Gillian said, my husband and I, Richard, have taken leadership of the Speedway Garden Club, which was established on Facebook just a year ago, so even sooner, and has quickly grown to, I think we're up to like 270 members now, and just a really active, great group of people and neighbors here, I think on the west side, we can officially say. We're not just contained to Speedway anymore. And so since this year, we have done a talk with a master gardener. We have gone out to Eagle Creek, the community gardens just south of Eagle Creek Park, and done a soil talk with Marion County Soil and Water about how to do no-till gardening and support soil health in your garden. We have also done plantings at Leonard Park, Meadowwood Park, and the Seeds of Light sculpture garden at the trailhead on the roundabout. And then our latest endeavor this summer has been a garden tour. And so we had a date in July when we had over 30 people come and visit some neighborhood gardens. We had, I think, 7 gardens in total to view. One of them was an urban farm, which was just technically south of Speedway, but he told us he gets the Speedway paper, so we let him in. And so Eric Woods is starting a co-op and community garden area just at his address is like 106 Worth, so it's like just south of Speedway, but he has big plans for the future. If anybody is looking for gardening space and a place to just rent a plot and do some gardening make some pals and build your community, he is doing amazing things down there. He also has a Facebook and an Instagram account if you want to follow his garden and farm just to learn more. I saw their onion harvest this year. They had so many onions, they didn't even know where to put them. And so what kind of their vision is, I think, is that they will all work together to garden together and reap the benefits of having lots of acreage planted and share that produce that comes out of that. So he will be also on our garden tour. We had the July date. We also have an August date, so that's August 26th. Thank you, Gillian, for putting that on the agenda here. And so if you want to check out an urban farm, he has loads of gardening, vegetable gardening, fruit gardening experience and knowledge. So we, like I said, had 7 gardens on our July date, and some of the other ones were homeowners here in Speedway with some amazing, I heard there was a fire-breathing dragon at one of the gardens. So some really amazing things you wouldn't even know about here in Speedway because they're tucked away in people's backyards. My husband and I's garden was on the July tour. We'll also be in the August tour. And we joined, even though our garden is only like 6 months old. We bought our new Speedway house in November of last year and brought some plants from our old house to the new house, but have started a whole new garden. And so if you are thinking, oh, a garden just sounds so intimidating, where do I start? Well, we can show you because we are only 6 months in. And so yeah, lots of amazing gardens on our garden tour, and like I said, we had over 30 people come out to the last one, so we're hoping to top that in August. It looks like the weather is going to cooperate for us. It's not going to be 1,000 degrees, so if you can make it out Saturday 1 to 3 p.m. The tickets are free. We have a booth set up at the Seeds of Light trailhead, and you can just come and pick up your ticket, which will have the addresses of the gardens that you can visit. And so yeah, we're just looking for anybody who has some expertise in gardening. If you want to share your knowledge with our group, anything around seed saving or planting, we do have a lot. I love that Bill did his presentation on native planting because a lot of our most active members are very passionate about native gardening, but we're not exclusive to that by any means. We've just had some wonderful volunteers show up who happen to love native gardening. So we have a Facebook group. It's Speedway Garden Club. We also have a email. I send anything we post in the Facebook group. I send out events and our volunteer opportunities via email. Also, it's speedwaygardenclub@gmail.com. So please join and let us hear your voice. Let us hear your expertise, because we are definitely looking for more events in the future and lots of community gardening. And if you haven't checked out our pollinator garden at Leonard Park, highly suggest it, over by the B&O Trail and the baseball diamonds. And we also did a planting at Meadowwood at a memorial bench over there. So if you have suggestions for projects where maybe we could do some community gardening or plantings to spruce up a little pocket park or a corner of your neighborhood, please feel free to let us know, because we will be looking for projects and events coming up for 2023-24. So thank you all so much.
And it's always nice, we always seem to have one of our meetings all about plants and gardening in Speedway, because we have a lot of people who have beautiful yards. So this will conclude our presentation. If members can stay for our business meeting, I appreciate that, but have a good night. Thank you. And yes.